Paramount came back and was like, hey, we want you to cut this out and cut this out. We don't like this. This is too violent, da 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 da. And he literally went back.
You spend time with your family?
Sure I do.
Good. Because a man who doesn't spend time with his family can never be a real man.
Francis Ford Coppola's masterpiece that most of us, which I don't really know anybody that doesn't love The Godfather or any parts of the trilogy, this is the movie that set the bar for not only cinematography, going from one dramatic scene to the next, with Paramount backing the production. Francis's ride on this movie was no easy task. And I'm going to go over some of the slick things that he did to get what he wanted, and how one director refused to let a production studio kill his dream and mess with the novel that he was inspired by. So let's get on with it, and we're going to talk about why this movie almost killed gangster films.
Makes you think, what's the channel about? What's this really about? It's about teaching life lessons, teaching the youth. It's about top fives, movie reviews. That's what makes you who you are, makes you what you are. There's no rules in this game. There's no parameters. Just truth. So, 2-3 weeks from now, you're gonna wish you subscribed. 2-3 weeks from now, you're gonna be looking for Movie AV Impulse. Okay, I'm reloaded. Let's go.
But some of the things that I've discovered while looking up this movie is that Marlon Brando was not the first choice that the studios wanted. It was actually Lawrence, and he was actually set up day one shot, ready to go in film. And unfortunately, he came down ill, and Francis Ford Coppola called in Marlon Brando. And at the time, I believe Marlon Brando was only like 47 years old, but his career was down in the dumps, and he was no longer that big box office blockbuster, bringing everybody actor anymore. He was what a lot considered washed up. But Francis seen his vision, and while I think the look of Lawrence, he could have gotten away with playing Vito, I just can't see anybody else in this role. But I guess that's kind of how it goes with any movie until you see somebody else in that role. But Francis was so slick and knew exactly what he wanted in his vision, and with really blowing up Al Pacino's career with this movie, because at the time he had made 2 small budget films and he was really not known. So therefore, again, Paramount's fighting him because he's not going to bring in big box office money. In filming in New York at the wedding scene, because that was done at a big mansion on Long Island back then. Filming in Sicily, where the conditions were less than stellar for the entire crew, and they went through a whole lot of stuff. What Francis was supposed to do was every Friday turn in what he had so far for the film, and if there was any cuts to be made or anything like that, the studios would tell him, we don't like this, we don't like that, and you need to get rid of this or we'll get rid of you. And he was really fighting to stay the director of this film because Paramount already had backups in their pocket, because they were just so unsure about what this was going to do. But Francis, being the visual genius that he is, seeing the potential in this novel, and what he would do is turn in what he had already done, the movie so far, the cuts, the editing, on Wednesdays, so that they couldn't fire him and replace him with a new director because it's in the middle of the week. So that was one of the genius things that he did, and he fought for a lot of scenes to stay in this movie. Without the success of this film, I don't think that we would have gotten films like Carlito's Way, A Bronx Tale, Gotti, Goodfellas, Casino, because these are all heavy mafia-based movies. King of New York, Sugar Hill, that has mafia essence in it. But a lot of that vision, a lot of that came forth from Francis Ford Coppola with this movie, and especially with part 2. Now part 3 was made in the 90s, So we're not going to talk about that one. And that one was really forced. But part two is also another standard because while it didn't do as good as the original Godfather, it still brought in big dollars. And back then, the theatrical release of The Godfather brought in over $270 million, which back in the 70s was absolutely insane. This film has had to have made billions by now with all the re-releases and the different cuts of the movie and all the reproduction. I know they re-released it in theaters to get hype built back up, but this is the movie that literally could have broke this genre of gangster films, because I really do believe that people like Martin Scorsese wouldn't have had the opportunity to make the film Goodfellas if it wasn't for the success on what other studios saw in the success of The Godfather. So while I know you probably learned nothing different about the uphill battles that Francis Ford Coppola faced, I mean, there's an entire documentary. There's now that show, The Offer. I mean, I don't know how accurate that is. I haven't watched the show. His vision and his cinematography is just one that cannot be matched. Even with today's gangster films, while I love them, y'all know if you follow my channel, by the way, like and subscribe, I am obsessed with the gangster mafia genre. This movie literally almost killed gangster films if Francis Ford Coppola didn't stand up for what he believed in and turned in the movie that he turned in and literally took no advice from nobody. And one little side note really quick, there's a funny story out there that Francis had turned in the full complete film. Paramount came back and was like, hey, we want you to cut this out and cut this out. We don't like this. This is too violent, da 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 da. And he literally went back, did absolutely nothing, turned the film back in, and for some reason the studio said, excellent, you cut the screen time down, the run time is down, perfect, we're gonna put it out. And that is a story that I heard. It's just a hilarious one to me because he literally just turned in the same exact movie. Anyways, I love this movie. I have a deep passion for it because, like I said, if it wasn't for this, gangster movies, gangster genre probably really wouldn't exist until maybe Goodfellas or Bronx Tale. But even then, like, that's a hard measure. If this film wasn't successful, it would have really killed the gangster genre for good. Because at the time that this was filmed, gangster movies were dead. They were all, nah, see? And those days were over. So, thank you, Francis. Much love and respect. I will see y'all on Wednesday. Peace.